Thanks for joining us for episode 0 of the Spartan Spotlight podcast. I'm here joined by Corey Robinson of Rivals at SpartanMag.com. Exciting day here, Corey, as we're kicking off this podcast that I think a lot of people will like, especially the community over at SpartanMag.com. Lots of stuff we can talk about, even though football is currently not being played. Lots of recruiting stuff we can go into. Lots of stuff happening with basketball and football. Do you want to talk a little bit about the vision we have for the podcast and what this will be like?
Yeah. So what we were coming up with was we were going to do a podcast where we could cover a bunch of different subjects and not just stick to just football on the field or just recruiting, but we're also going to add to it where we talk to some of the recruits or players or even some of the Michigan State coaches or some of the other top high school coaches in the area and kind of get a feel for them as people too outside of the football field, while kind of talking about the recruiting end of it as much as we can and just the on-field stuff. But it would be a more complex thing. And with Justin and my contacts, we have an ability to probably do a podcast that's a little different than what's out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can get a lot of different kind of guests on here, and we can share a lot of different insight with people that you can't really get through like written content and stuff that we currently provide. So I think it's going to be fun to get to know a lot of the people that would be on our show, in addition to what they kind of think of the staff after they get an offer. We kind of get to know some of these recruits and the coaches more as people with the kind of angle that we're going to approach the podcast with, and just get to have some casual conversations with them. Speaking of getting to know the people that'll be on the pod, we could also kind of run down our own personal history so that people kind of know who we are and how we kind of got into this thing. I know sometimes I get questions on like Instagram or Twitter DMs where people, a lot of times younger people are kind of curious about how I might be able to go into this field, especially if they see like I'm a Twitter bio or something that like my major is mechanical engineering, and that's not really what the journalism kind of field is populated with. So I guess I'll just run through my background first here. So right now I'm currently a senior at Michigan State, and freshman year is when I kind of started to get into the whole writing about sports realm. And back then I started at Fansided's Michigan State site, Spartan Avenue. Connor Muldowney gave me the opportunity to kind of use that as an outlet to talk about sports. I always thought I was good at writing, and I obviously really, really like sports. So that was like a natural path that I was able to pursue. Then I also was able to write for Fansided's website, Busting Brackets, and that's where they cover national college basketball. From there, I kind of went into SB Nation and that site. They have a slightly bigger viewership, so I wanted to give that a try. And I was there for a very brief time. Classes started to pick up, and it was still a good experience, though, to kind of write for another medium. And then that brings the timeline to about the beginning half of sophomore year. And then after that, I kind of figured that that would be like the peak of kind of the journey and where I'd be able to cover sports with my degree being in mechanical engineering. And I thought that's pretty much as far as that path can go. And then after the coaching search here happened after Coach D'Antonio stepped away, that was kind of the first time that I joined Spartan Mag, which is the Rivals MSU site. And that was kind of what opened me to learning more about what you do and the kind of stuff that recruiting insiders do. And one of the recruiting rap podcasts that you and Jim do occasionally, that you kind of covered that you work at Sparrow Hospital as like your day job and that you do this on the side. And that was kind of the first time I thought it would be possible for someone to do this without them having this be their main career and their main and like having like a journalism background. So that was actually the first time I thought it was possible for me to continue kind of with the passion of like covering sports and kind of becoming a recruiting insider, was when you dropped that tidbit. during one of those podcasts. So then I continued to follow recruiting for the next month or two very closely after that. And then after a while, I know I reached out to you, and then you put me in contact with Jim Comparoni, who's the publisher of Spartan Mag. And then I think after a few months of contributing on the board, and you guys seeing that from time to time, that kind of built up a little reputation that Jim was willing to kind of look at and then bring me on. And I think you guys have been happy with the work I've been doing. So I guess that brings us to where I am now. So definitely major thanks to you and Jim for helping me get here. So do you want to now go ahead and kind of run through how your journey kind of brought you to here?
Yeah, and to add on to you, since you've joined us, it's made my job a lot easier because we're able to kind of defer things, push it back and forth. So I think that's helped bring the content up at Spartan Mag since you've been there. But as far as my journey, I grew up, I played basketball, soccer, baseball. Eventually that dries up, but anybody that knows me knew that I was really passionate and knowledgeable about sports. So, I kind of got into that, and I started, with just my Twitter handle for people that are looking out there by putting out content or retweeting stuff and giving your thoughts and insights and stuff. And eventually, the Only Colors actually was my first job, and as a journalist covering Michigan State. So I covered recruiting for them, kind of was more of a ghost reporter. My name wasn't out there, but I was kind of giving some of those guys the information for them to put out, which that worked out good. But then after a while, I'm like, well, if I want to do this, I'm going to do it on my own, kind of build my own brand. So I took a little time away, and then Connor Modolny also reached out to me, and I did a lot of work with Fansided, where I gave them kind of their first glimpse of real actual recruiting, where there's quotes from players, and you're getting that as instead of maybe the opinion pieces that they normally put out with recruiting or the reactions. But so it gave it more of an inside look. And when you do that with someone like Fansided, where it's not behind a paywall, the other places notice, like Rivals and 247, that they're getting kind of scooped by a free guy. So Jim Comparoni reached out to me, and they were in a transition with where they were at, where Matt Dorsey, who had done a great job for Jim and Spartan Mag for years, was kind of ready to step back and have his personal life a little more than this. So the timing worked out. So then I've been with them, I believe, maybe 2 years now. I think about 2 years, I think, covering recruiting for them. And then last football season, I jumped up in the press box, so I'm at the games covering those, which I'll be excited to go do again with this new staff. And with the new staff, I have a feeling I'll have a little bit more field access before games. So when we get back to our normal with the stadiums full, recruits on campus, you'll see a lot more photo galleries of recruits on the field or up in the stands from the field, because I'll have that new access with them. So that's exciting whenever we get back to football. And then as far as the advice I have for anyone trying to get into it, honestly, if you just work really hard and don't try to be first, try to be right as much as you can in a fluid business. If you work hard and put the right information out there, then you can make it with a lot of hard work.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice, especially if you look at kind of where I was a few months ago. Really, the only, I guess, tools in my toolbox to be good at this job were just, I guess, kind of writing skills and then just passion for sports. That's really it. So beyond that, it's not that hard for someone to get to the level of where we are. This is not something that is an opportunity that's only open to people of certain technical training or anything like that. If you have the passion and you work hard at it, this is pretty much something that anybody out there can do. So hopefully that's something that people can kind of take away from this. But yeah, so that's pretty much all Corey and I had to share so far in this episode 0. So I guess looking forward, we're going to start getting some guests. We have a few lined up right now. Once we are able to go ahead and put this podcast out there, get kind of some logistical things figured out here in the next few days, we'll go ahead and get the series actually started and getting some guests on there. And I think a lot of people will enjoy it. You can follow me out on Twitter and Instagram at Justin Thind, and you can follow Corey on Twitter at Rivals Robinson. And you can just always feel free to reach out if you want something discussed and whatnot. Yeah, so I guess stay tuned. We'll be definitely pushing this. We think it can be something that can really grow. Corey, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap things up here for episode 0?
Yeah, I'll just say the guest list that we got together already, it's going to be a big one. I think a lot of people will really enjoy the diversity of the list and just how big of the names some of these guys are for the people that follow recruiting or Michigan State, because there will be a good mixture of both Michigan State guys and prospects that Michigan State is recruiting. So I think you guys will really enjoy it. Hang with us through the technical stuff at the beginning, but once we get this rolling, I think it'll probably be able to blow a lot of the other podcasts in this genre out of the water due to our access to so many different people.
Yeah, definitely. We're for sure coming out swinging right from the beginning here once we get this launched. So we'll have updates on our Twitter and at SpartanMag.com. Definitely go ahead and subscribe over there if you want to see a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the contributions that we make, along with all the other guys at SpartanMag.com. And yeah, stay tuned. We will have more here in the coming days, and hopefully you enjoy this journey as much as we do. Thank you, everyone.